The wind tore across the northern plains like a living thing, carrying snow in jagged sheets that cut through every layer of clothing. Most people in the valley had already retreated to the warmth of their cabins, stamping snow from boots and shaking frozen hair from hats. But Elena Brooks kept digging. The earth beneath her hands was unyielding, frozen solid, yet she pressed on. Neighbors had begun whispering about her when she first appeared on the property she had purchased in late autumn, her small frame nearly invisible against the towering pines. "Impossible," they said. "She'll freeze before she even gets through the first layer of frost." Elena didn't answer. She had no need to. She knew what she was doing. Every scoop of frozen soil was placed carefully. Every stone laid precisely to reinforce the walls of the underground shelter she envisioned. Her plan wasn't the sort that could be explained in a few hurried sentences. It had taken her weeks to study the land, to walk its contours, to understand how the snow drifted and the wind howled. Every rise and hollow mattered. Every gust of winter air was a lesson. She had come prepared for this winter, unlike any other the valley had seen in decades. When the first neighbor rode by and noticed her laboring figure, he called out over the wind, "What are you doing, girl? Digging a grave?" He laughed, a high, sharp sound that cut across the cold air. Elena didn't respond. She continued to dig, her small hands numb with frost, her muscles burning from exertion. The man shook his head and spurred his horse away, muttering about foolishness and wasted effort. Others came later, stopping at the fence line to watch her progress. Some sneered, some offered helpful advice about timber framing or building above ground, but she ignored them all. She had seen what the snow did to their roofs and walls, had watched how poorly built cabins sagged and groaned under the first drifts of winter, and she knew no timbered above-ground structure could survive what was coming. By the end of October, she had carved a hollow beneath the slope at the edge of her property. The walls were reinforced with heavy wooden beams she had milled herself from nearby pines. Above the beams, she packed a thick layer of earth and stones, pressing it firmly until it formed an almost seamless mound. The entrance was narrow, designed to divert the wind and prevent snow from piling against the doorway. A heavy door she built from layered wood and rope fit snugly, and a small ventilation shaft allowed air in without letting the cold in. From the outside, the shelter looked like a low mound of dirt with a strange square in the center, a doorway. Nothing about it screamed warmth or safety. When the first snows came, the neighbors gathered at their windows and doors, shaking their heads in disbelief. "She'll never make it through the winter," one said, shivering even in the relative warmth of his cabin. "Who would bury themselves alive like that?" Another added, "Mark my words, she's going to be the story everyone tells when spring comes. The foolish girl who froze before Christmas." Elena heard them. She always heard them. But she had learned to listen to the land as well, and it had already whispered to her how to survive. She trusted it more than the voices of those who had never dared to understand it. As November descended, the snow arrived not in quiet flurries, but in fierce torrents. The winds screamed like a pack of wolves, swirling icy blasts across every surface. Neighbors ran from one structure to another, shoveling snow, reinforcing beams, cursing under their breath as rooftops creaked and groaned. Elena moved calmly inside her shelter, checking the fire and supplies. The walls held firm. The earth outside absorbed the blows of the wind, muffling its fury. The temperature inside remained cold enough to notice, but never close to deadly. She could hear the storm, its rage muted by the layers of soil and wood she had so meticulously placed. Night fell. Snow accumulated quickly, covering the valley in deep drifts. Outside, the world disappeared under white chaos. Only the faint outlines of trees showed through the blur. Elena huddled near the small wood stove, wrapped in blankets, sipping water from a jug she had filled and stored weeks ago. Every sound outside, roaring wind, snapping branches, the distant collapse of unprepared cabins, reminded her that she had done everything right. Every layer of earth, every carefully set timber, every calculation of airflow and insulation had prepared her for this exact moment. The storm continued for hours, then days. Neighbors who had mocked her were forced to confront reality. Many barely survived, wandering through drifts taller than their shoulders, shivering and exhausted. Some cabins collapsed entirely under the weight of snow, their inhabitants rescued with difficulty, or not at all. Elena remained calm, counting each hour, checking her ventilation, stoking the fire, rationing food and water. The shelter didn't just keep her alive, it kept her warm, dry, and protected. By the third day, the blizzard reached its peak. Visibility outside was non-existent. The valley had disappeared under a shifting wall of snow. The wind whipped past, relentless, like it was testing the limits of the world itself. And yet, inside the shelter, Elena sat quietly. She could feel the earth's vibration beneath her, faint but reassuring. She had built this refuge with care, with foresight, and with patience, and now it repaid her. She closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the muted roar of the storm above, feeling a quiet triumph. When the first light of dawn finally pierced the storm, she peered out through the ventilation shaft. The landscape was unrecognizable. Cabins were buried or partially collapsed. Horses and livestock struggled in the deep snow. Only her mound remained untouched, sturdy and unchanged, a testament to planning and knowledge. She opened the door, letting a small stream of cold light inside. The wind slammed against the entrance briefly, then moved on. The valley would remember this winter for years, and she would remember it as the one her impossible shelter proved that foresight, courage, and understanding of the land could conquer even the fiercest blizzard. The neighbors who had mocked her now stared in disbelief as the snow began to settle, revealing the devastation around them. Roofs had collapsed under the weight of the drifts, fences were buried, and entire sections of some cabins had caved in. Men and women who had sneered at Elena's underground mound now moved cautiously through the blinding whiteness, their expressions a mix of awe and fear. They had been lucky to survive it all. Elena emerged slowly from her shelter, stepping into the crisp, frigid air. Her boots crunched against the compacted snow, and she paused to look around. The valley was transformed, a white expanse broken only by the shapes of trees and buried buildings. The storm had spared no one who had relied on conventional structures, but her home, her impossible refuge, stood solid, nearly invisible, a testament to her careful planning. One neighbor, a tall man named Harris, approached her cautiously, his face red from the cold, eyes wide with disbelief. How did you survive that?" he asked, his voice trembling. Everyone, thought you'd be buried alive." Elena smiled faintly, brushing snow from the entrance of her shelter. "I listened to the land," she said simply. "I didn't fight it. I worked with it, that's all." Her calm, quiet explanation left them speechless. She didn't boast. She didn't celebrate. She simply demonstrated that intelligence, observation, and respect for nature could triumph over the harshest circumstances. Slowly, word spread throughout the valley of her success. The story of the girl who built the underground shelter in a place everyone else called impossible became legend. In the following days, Elena guided those who sought to learn her methods. She taught them how to dig below the surface, reinforce walls, create insulation with earth and wood, and design airflow that kept the interior warm even as winter raged outside. The same neighbors who had mocked her now followed her instructions diligently, realizing that the survival of their homes depended on her expertise. The winter stretched on, cold and relentless, but thanks to Elena's teachings, several new shelters stood firm against the storms. Families who had been on the brink of disaster were now safe, and the valley began to see her not as the quiet outsider, but as a hero, someone whose foresight and courage had saved lives. By spring, the snow melted, revealing a transformed valley. Trees stood tall again, fences re-emerged from the drifts, and homes that had survived Elena's lessons stood stronger than ever. The people who had once doubted her now approached her with respect and gratitude. She had not only survived the worst blizzard the valley had ever seen, but had changed the way everyone thought about winter, survival, and the importance of listening to the land. Elena's impossible shelter had done more than protect her. It had inspired an entire community to rethink the impossible, showing them that preparation, knowledge, and courage could overcome even the harshest of nature's trials. And from that winter onward, whenever the winds howled across the northern plains, the valley remembered Elena Brooks, the girl who built a shelter no one believed in, and who proved that with vision and perseverance, the impossible could become reality.